this evening to the program in conjunction with the Obama Portraits Tour featuring Dr. Liz and Dr. Liz Andrews. And I was thinking that for me this is a wonderful occasion because it's something most of you probably don't know is that we have our monthly LSAT meetings in this room, in this auditorium. And it's the first time I've seen you here, so in a couple of years. So welcome back. We are really proud to be among 5 venerable institutions across the country, from coast to coast, to host this exhibition. And it's super important to us and to all the other venues to have these paintings on the road, for them to go on tour, to reach millions of people who may not have the opportunity to see them at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. So that's an important goal, and it's also a wonderful opportunity to meet the President and First Lady, Mr. and Mrs. Obama, in a way. That's what the show is kind of about, in a way, as well. We have a reception line that introduces you to the President and First Lady. So I was thinking about this exhibition last week when we opened it, and I was thinking about the fact that it's an exhibition about 2 paintings, but there's more to the exhibition than that. It's more than just an exhibition of 2 paintings. I was thinking about the time my grandmother told me that, when I was a kid, that if you study really, really hard, that someday you could be the president. You know, probably that you all have similar memories of that. And for generations, the U.S. presidency has represented and symbolized the apex of aspirational goals for young Americans. And accordingly, this exhibition is as much about the power of aspiration as it is about presidential portraiture. For, while it does consist of 2 paintings, it consists of multiple stories that we interweave throughout the exhibition. And these stories and these paintings are charged, are energized by the dreams of all the children who've come to see this exhibition and their aspirations for the future. It's about the American dream in many ways, the American dream in that life should be better, and richer and fuller for everyone. And that opportunity should be there for everyone. This uniquely American idea of opportunity that this exhibition is also about. And it's a dream, it's a story that we're hardwired to. And that's why I think so many people are excited to see these paintings. It's as much as a part of our story, each and every one of us as Americans, as it is to all these young kids who come to see the President and the First Lady, and to learn about their stories, and the stories of Kehinde Wiley and Sherrod. So we're excited also this evening to hear from Dr. Liz Andrews. But before we have that pleasure, I want to make some acknowledgments and thanks. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge Bank of America for generously underwriting the national tour, and the exhibition is also made possible in Atlanta by lead supporters BlackRock, Graphic Packaging International, Matt Wilborn, and funders Kent and Tamara Kelly, Sally and Ellen McDaniel, in addition to support from sponsors, exhibition series sponsors, sorry, that's a tongue twister, and that would be Delta Airlines, and our premier exhibition series sponsor, which includes ACT Foundation, Sarah and Jim Kennedy, Louise Sands, and Jerome Guyot, the estate of Dr. Joan H. Weens, the Wish Foundation, and Erie Norman Realtors. Our benefactor exhibition series supporters include Robin and Harold, as well as our ambassador and contributing exhibition series supporters. So we have a lot of supporters here. We're grateful for them all, and they make these great programs possible, as do you. So last but not least, we all thank you, members who are here tonight in the audience. What you do for us makes it possible for us to do exhibitions like the Obama Portraits Tour and all the other exhibitions that you see on the screen before you. So, this evening, it's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Liz Andrews. Dr. Andrews was relatively recently, appointed executive director at Spelman College Museum of Art last summer, and she came here from Los Angeles County Museum of Art, where she spent the last 5 years as executive administrator in the director's office. Andrews co-organized the Obama Portraits Tour at LACMA, and she also co-curated a wildly successful exhibition called Black American Portraits, which, if you haven't seen it, you may have an opportunity to see it in the future. The exhibition, Black American Portraits, is interesting in the context of the High Museum and our relationship with David Driscoll, because it was inspired in part by David Driscoll's seminal exhibition, 200 Years of Black American Art, which was also organized by LACMA in 1976. So, in Dr. Andrews' dissertation titled Envisioning President Barack Obama, she explored the expanded role of visual images in the 2008 election, which gave us our 44th president and our first Black president. Prior to that, Dr. Andrews was a doctoral student at George Mason University, where she co-taught the multi-year Mason Science of Diversity project. She also holds a BA in American Studies from Wesleyan and an MA in Arts and Politics from the Tisch School of Fine Arts at NYU. In addition to all this, she has her PhD in Cultural Studies from George Mason University. So without further delay, please help me welcome Dr. Andrews.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your introduction, and congratulations on the beautiful installation of the Obama portraits here, which is really unique. It's unlike any of the venues before it. Thank you also to Graham Supple, the director here at the High Museum of Art, as well as Yadira Padilla, Aaron Doherty, and all the wonderful staff, Lauren, Alex. I felt very welcomed to Atlanta by the High Museum of Art. So, January 20th, 2009, precisely 13 years ago today, Barack Obama was inaugurated as the 44th President of the United States of America. This photograph was taken the day he was sworn into office, and the newspaper the young boy is holding compares him to Martin Luther King, which I think is an interesting thing that we gather here on the same week as Martin Luther King's birthday, because of course during the election there were so many parallels drawn between Obama and the legacy of the civil rights movement and voting rights. People came from across the nation to witness history in the making. This photograph, taken by Catherine Obie, was made at the exact moment he was sworn into office. People saw themselves in the presidency for the first time. Many people felt like it was a pilgrimage to come to Washington on that day. And part of what made Obama electable was visual images. People were taken with the image of Obama. You yourself might have had buttons, mugs, t-shirts with his face or his logo. His image was broadcast in traditional media, newspapers, on television, but also on then emerging social media technologies like Twitter and Facebook. Instagram did not yet exist, let alone TikTok. But nonetheless, people were using this new social media technology to promote and to debate Obama and his politics and his image online. But we're here to talk about two paintings, the Obama portraits. And in order to understand the significance of those two paintings, we don't have to go back just 13 years. We actually need to take it back about 250 years. This is a painting of the nation's first president, George Washington, the Athenaeum portrait by Gilbert Stuart. Gilbert Stuart was not considered Washington's best portraitist or even the most accurate, but he is known to create the most iconic portraits of Washington. This one probably looks familiar because it was used to model the image that we currently see on the dollar bill, the dollar bill. Portraiture is a tool of power that monarchs and aristocrats have used for generations in Europe. The complete official collection of presidential portraits at the National Portrait Gallery is the only public collection. There is one at the White House, and there is one at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, which has commissioned the portraits that we are here to discuss tonight and brought them on tour. Their most compelling and popular exhibition, permanent exhibition, is America's Presidents. When you walk through the halls of the presidential portraits, a message is very clear. The ideal citizen, the ideal leader, is considered to be white and male and property. This portrait by Gilbert Stuart, as well as others by Charles Wilson Peale, the Portrait Gallery claims were more important to the founding of this nation than the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Why would pictures be more important to the nation than the founding documents? Benedict Anderson wrote a book called Imagined Communities about how nations are formed. At the time of the Revolutionary War, Washington was leading the forces, and people identified with their colony. They thought of themselves as Massachusetts men and Virginians, but Washington said, no, 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 we are Americans. It changed the narrative and solidified the idea of this new nation in the minds of would-be citizens. And so, in these documents, these founding documents, there is an appeal to the people. We, the people of the United States of America. But at the moment in time when those documents were written and when paintings like this were made, the idea of personhood was reserved, again, to property white men. The portraits of our early presidents, our founding fathers, leaned on conventions from Europe. For instance, the powdered wig. Aristocratic men in England in the 18th century would not be seen without their wigs. It was vested with masculinity and authority. You can talk about snatching wigs today. Back in the day, to steal one's wig was the equivalent on a tax of one's very identity. So you had to have the powdered wig in the painting. Another convention was having props and property. We've got the pose of the orator, we have the regalia of the army, and in this image, George Washington is pictured with William Lee, Billy Lee, who was enslaved, his footman, for the Revolutionary War, during and throughout his entire presidency for over 20 years. So I want, if nothing else you take away from this talk today, I want you to know that while the Obama portraits are the first Black presidential portraits, Black people have always been part of the presidency. They've just been obscured from the picture. Here we have two images. On the left, there's a painting by John Trumbull from 1780. And on the right, a painting by contemporary artist Titus Kaphar that was made during Obama's second term in office, which I think is quite significant. It is entitled "The Gift of Shrouded Descent" and is clearly based on the 1780 painting. In this image, Titus Kaphar has re-envisioned the idea of the presidency, of the founding, to take a critical view. A shroud is something that covers, usually with death. So when we think of the founding, these ideals of democracy, freedom, you think of it as a gift to the world, this revolutionary founding. But Titus says, I want to take the central subject of this painting, George Washington, out of view and bring your attention to the people who have always been there. It offers an alternative origin story of the United States of America, so that the president, the first president, is not only free from the bondage of England with this new nation, he's also free from enslavement. That's part of what brings him power. Another image by Titus Kaphar I want to show you is this one, which is based on a portrait of Thomas Jefferson. This one is entitled "Behind the Myth of the Netherlands." It's two pieces of canvas, and it is as the artist has literally peeled back the founding father iconography to reveal what has truly always been there in this mythic founding. The fact that half of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, as well as the Constitution, were slaveholders, including Jefferson and Washington. And so that is part of this story. He based his image on the history of Sally Hemings, who was the enslaved mistress of Thomas Jefferson. But interestingly, Sally Hemings was very fair-skinned. She was considered to be more beautiful than many others among hundreds of people at Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's plantation. So it is both about her, Sally Hemings, and Thomas Jefferson, but it is also about the idea of the founding father and the fact that enslavement and sexual slavery is at the heart of this nation. So Black Americans were excluded, obviously, from presidential portraits at the beginning of this nation, and indeed portraiture in general. Again, portraiture is a tool of power. But when photography was invented in 1839, and the daguerreotype became commercially available, photo studios started popping up around the United States of America. It became popular around the world, but the United States of America took on photography in a completely different way, and particularly portraits. You'll see here 2 images of Frederick Douglass, who's really a style icon of mine. Both in the collection of the National Portrait Gallery. One is from around 1848, and the other is from 1876. And I want to put these side by side to show you Frederick Douglass was born into slavery and escaped, self-emancipated. And he became a very widely known abolitionist. He lectured on the evils of slavery. In addition to talking about the need for emancipation in general, Frederick Douglass was a strong advocate for the power of photography, the power of portraiture in the Emancipation Project. He said that portraits, like the ones we just viewed of George Washington, they ground someone in history. Your image lives after you. You can have the stance of the orator. You can have a flag behind you to show your patriotism. You can have books to show your knowledge. And with photography, it finally allowed Black Americans in the first decades of freedom, so before, during, and after emancipation, to see ourselves in our own eyes for the first time. Frederick Douglass said, and I quote, "What was once the exclusive luxury of the rich and great is now within reach of all. The humblest servant girl, whose income is but a few shillings a week, may now possess a more perfect likeness of herself than noble ladies and even royalty, with all its precious treasures, could purchase 50 years ago." I can't tell you how significant it is that people who were once themselves owned, within a few years of the invention of photography, could then own images of themselves. Frederick Douglass was a strong proponent of photography and was the most photographed American of his time, including more than his contemporary, President Abraham Lincoln. This photograph was taken by Matthew Brady, who took several pictures of Lincoln over the course of his lifetime. Lincoln was also very dedicated to having his image taken. This picture was taken in 1860 during the presidential election. And this picture ran in Harper's Weekly. It was taken at the Cooper Union, where he gave an address. And it is said that Lincoln has said that Brady and the Cooper Institute made me president, meaning that having his picture taken and people seeing his face, seeing him standing with this book, looking presidential, helped get him elected. And so visual images are key to the founding of the nation, with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson with paintings, and a renewed interest with the invention of photography in the mid-1800s. Digital technologies today, of course, were preceded by television. In the election of 1960, you might have heard the legend around the televised debates between Kennedy and Nixon. The lore goes that the first of the 3 televised debates, if you were listening on the radio, you thought that Nixon won because of the way he articulated his views. But those who watched on television thought that Kennedy won. Nixon had spent his time running around the country, literally trying to visit in person every single state. He was running himself ragged. Kennedy saw the power of the image, the power of television to get his iconography out there. So the day before the debate, he was hanging out by a pool, tanning, got his, makeup done, hair done, and walks in looking pristine. So when people watched on television and saw a tired, haggard Nixon and celebrity movie star looking Kennedy, they believed that he was the more capable candidate for looking at him. I love this image in particular. It's from the Democratic National Convention in Los Angeles in 1960. And it shows Kennedy addressing the crowd, but also on a screen from behind, to emphasize the way that televisual technology allowed his face, his image, his iconography to be everywhere. So fast forward to 2008. Images of Barack Obama were everywhere. Pictures, artworks, his logo, his face could be found everywhere. It was a seemingly ubiquitous presence. He was not only famous for his eloquence, his speeches, his politics, but it was about the fact that seeing this image of a man, a black man, look presidential was taking America by storm. This picture you might recognize. It's a photograph taken in 2006. We see a young, no gray hairs here, young senator, junior senator, Barack Obama, looking off into the distance. Behind him, there's just the hint of the American flag in red, white, and blue. The reason it may seem familiar to you is because this photograph was used to create a very famous image in 2008. Many of you will probably recognize this Hope poster by Shepard Fairey. It was not an official campaign image, but the campaign was aware of it. And in fact, Shepard Fairey's use of Manny Garcia's Associated Press photograph of Barack Obama sparked some of the biggest debates about fair use and several lawsuits. What I think is so powerful about this image is that in it, we see the visualization of that speech that Obama gave in 2004 at the Democratic National Convention that catapulted him into the national spotlight. He was a new senator, but he spoke in prime time and wove his own story into the story of the United States of America. His father, a black man from Kenya. His mother, a white woman from Kansas. And he said, we are not red states and blue states. We are the United States of America. And this is the only nation that a story like his could exist. And so in this image, Barack Obama is not a black man. He's not a brown man. He is a red, white, and blue man. He is the colors of the nation. It is as if the flag that is behind him in the photograph has become him. He is the visualization of the hopes and dreams of the civil rights movement, of integration, of the first black president in his faith. And so, in curating the Obama portraits at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, we wanted to show people that there is a strong history, not just the one that I've shown you of presidential portraiture, but that Frederick Douglass, people, artists from the Harlem Renaissance, all the way up to until today, have used portraits as a tool for self-actualization. Michael spoke about my show, Black American Portraits, which is on view in Los Angeles now through April 17th. And I'll let you know if you can't get to LA before April, you will have an opportunity to see it here in Atlanta. 1 year from now. that is like no time in museums. That's the blink of an eye. What is time in these events? In January of 2023, we will open up Black American Portraits at my museum, the Spelman College Museum of Fine Arts. So I look forward to seeing you there. And as Michael said, 46 years ago now, David Driscoll, who tragically died of COVID at the very beginning of the pandemic, organized the first survey of Black American art. And it was organized at LACMA and traveled to the High, as well as Berkeley Museum, many of the venues of the Obama Portraits Tour. And this exhibition takes you through a history of portraiture. Because again, portraiture is a tool of power, and Black Americans have seized that tool for generations. So I look forward to engaging with you about the history of portraiture through the history of Black Americans. The way we installed the Obama portraits in Los Angeles were similar to the ways they have been installed in Brooklyn and in Chicago, in that they were side by side. And in our installation, we purposefully put them so that you, as the viewer, were facing north. The reason for that is to conjure the history of the North Star. The star that is not the biggest or brightest in the sky, it is the one that stays exactly above the North Node and was used by people such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman to escape to freedom. The map in the sky, he wrote. But you will have an especially unique experience seeing the Obama portraits here in Atlanta. Unlike any of the other venues, the portraits are not side by side. They stand alone on different walls. And I think that's a really powerful move because they are truly artworks of their own right and were created on their own. Kehinde Wiley and Amy Sherrill did not consult with each other, in fact, did not even know who the other person was when they were painting the portraits. This picture, Barack Obama, is by Kehinde Wiley. It was very special for us to present this image in Los Angeles because Kehinde Wiley was born and raised in LA. And at the unveiling in 2018, Kehinde Wiley spoke about growing up in Los Angeles and going to museums. So places like the Getty, the Huntington, and the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and not seeing people who happened to look like him on the walls. He said that the absence of Black people in museums is part of what made him want to become an artist. And so it was very special to present this picture in his hometown among an exhibition of over 200 years of artworks, showing that this image has a strong history. Now, again, when you walk through the America's Presidents galleries at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, there are strong conventions. There are presidents who are standing with books to show knowledge, in flags for patriotism. And the colors are usually muted: blues, grays, blacks. And of course, it is assumed that all 43 presidents before Obama were white men. So this image is a serious departure from the conventions of presidential portraiture, both because it is the first person of color to be depicted, but also because it is so colorful. And it's highly symbolic. Obama is seated and leans forward, engaging. The top button of his collared shirt is unbuttoned, and he wears no tie, so it's to appear approachable. There's a lush green topiary in the background with 3 different flowers. There are chrysanthemums, which is the flower of the city of Chicago, where Obama came up in politics and met Michelle. There's white jasmine from Hawaii, which is where he was born and raised. And then there are African blueberries representing Kenya, his father's homeland. And as you see, the background literally starts to come up at his feet. It is as if he is rooted in this background. He is president, but he will always be that young man from Hawaii, from Chicago, with ancestry from Kenya. And it's a hyper-real rendering. If you haven't seen it in person yet, it is truly striking to see it in person. As many times as you've seen it on your phone, on the computer, on printed matter, there's nothing like seeing this image in person. It is as if he's looking directly at you. And then, of course, we have the beautiful portrait of Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama by Amy Sherrill, who is, of course, a Georgia native and graduated from Clark Atlanta University. She took her painting art classes at Spelman. And she renders Michelle Obama in an equally symbolic and actually rather abstract manner. Her dress alludes to a couple different things. There's pop art, the art of Piet Mondrian, the geometric shapes, but then also African-American quilting traditions with the patterns. And then she's got a sky blue background that is just serene. It is as if Michelle Obama is floating in the image. And she renders her in Amy Sherrill's signature grayscale skin tone. She uses this color to divorce the idea of race and class from skin color. And it's also very much in conversation with photography, the way brown skin tones are rendered in black and white images. This is the first image you'll see when you visit the Obama portraits here at the High Museum of Art. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing because there is something very different about this image from Kehinde Wiley's rendering of Barack Obama. Whereas the image of the president is hyper-real, this picture is as if it is an interpretation of Michelle Obama. She is not just a person. She has elevated to the status of icon. To conclude, I want to just show this image of a person in the first portraits that were impactful to me, my father, Irving Andrew. He was a civil rights attorney born in 1925, the first Black graduate of the University of Denver Law School in 1950. And he went on to serve on the legal team of Brown v. Board and fight for the voting rights that many are so assiduously fighting to dismantle as we speak. And the reason I want to bring up this image is because one generation before Barack Obama, a black man could not vote in a presidential election, let alone run for office. And so it is incredibly powerful, these portraits and this history they represent. The fact that the Obamas chose to be rendered by black artists through their eyes, through their hands, sends a strong message that they understand the power of their image. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions if anybody has them. You do your microphone so everybody can hear you. Here.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and storytelling through it. Now that we're flooded by images across social media, the news, all these different mediums, what do you see the role of portraiture now? Do you think that their value will be decreasing because we're bombarded by images so much?
I'll start out by pointing out that the National Portrait Gallery, the official portraits, we are well into digital imaging at this point. Photography has existed for a very long time, but the official portraits are still paintings. There's something very significant about an artist's hand, an artist's artwork. And as we saw, the Obama portraits became viral images immediately. Do you know what the image of Bill Clinton looked like? George W. Bush? No. So combination of digital and art have propelled these particular images into the celebrity status that they have. But I think honestly, with social media, the power of images is more important than ever. Because, there are debates about democratization. Now you can be a content creator yourself. And there's something very special going on right now that is, I think, equally empowering and disturbing, in that you can curate an image of yourself and your life that may be real or not, but nonetheless can reach millions of people from wherever you are.
How many unpresidential images have traveled from the Smithsonian, and what was the process like to get these out there?
They have never traveled presidential portraits in this manner. I'll say that presidential portraits have been, loaned to other museums and things like that, but there's never been, a portraits tour of any other president before. As far as doing this tour, I think the portrait gallery was very savvy in seeing that their visitorship in the first year that these images were on view doubled. People came in droves. You'll see here, it's like a hodge almost coming to see these portraits. And I'll say that when we were putting them up at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, we spent 2 weeks installing the Black American Portraits show, and this was the very last thing we were doing, putting up the Obama portraits. And we have art handlers. There's a really wonderful program at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art called the DAP program. It's a program to diversify art handlers. There are lots of jobs at museums, like art handling, conservation, that people don't even know exist, and for that reason can be very elite and usually white. So we made sure that the people who were handling the art were from across race, class. I have never seen the art handlers more excited and serious about any work of art. It was like church in the galleries as we were putting these up. So I'll say, I think that this is a really special tour for everyone. It's a two-painting show. How is that something that people want to come see? But there's something just really powerful about these images. One thing I'll also say is that the tour was actually supposed to happen a year earlier, but Kehinde Wiley was adamant that his portrait of Barack Obama be in Washington, D.C. during the 2016 election. What is that? So I'm very thankful for that insistence on his part, because it would have been in the very first year of COVID that these portraits were supposed to travel. So that was a happy coincidence.
Are any of the earlier portraits that you showed going to be living in the exhibit?
Oh, the portraits of George Washington.
No, I didn't think of Obama.
Oh, of Obama.
Yeah.
No.
You said it different.
Yeah. Different thing. I'll tell you that this this portrait is in the collection of the National Portrait Gallery. And I didn't mention this, but you saw this on posters, you saw this everywhere. And I don't think it's on view right now, but it was the first time that the National Portrait Gallery ever collected a picture of a president while they were still in office, or as they were coming into office. They commissioned a special version. As you see, this is a stencil collage that Shepard Fairey did especially for the National Portrait Gallery, and they acquired it in January 2009 as he was coming into office. But you will not see it here, and you might not see it in Washington, D.C. for a while, actually, but you can definitely find it online.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting this event. I was curious about the locations. How were the locations for the tour chosen?
It was done by the Portrait Gallery, and I think that they wanted to get to all of the parts of the country. So it started in Chicago, and I think they wanted to go there first because that's, of course, where Obama started, where the Obama Foundation is housed, where eventually his presidential library will be. You know, you've got to go to New York, Brooklyn. Los Angeles was chosen for the West Coast. And, you know, we've got Atlanta here, and the last stop is Houston. All of the museums are encyclopedic museums, meaning they're museums that collect and exhibit art across time, across medium. So I think that they chose the city and the institutions to, frankly, get the widest audience of people.
We'll take one last one.
Pressure, the last question. It's kind of twofold, and before these portraits, you know, obviously people are competing to be the artist who gets to do this. Prior to the Obamas, did artists who were competing for that generally have affinity for the president, or did they just kind of want the honor of having done it? And then also, from here on out, and let's say 20, 40 years from now, a few presidents from now, has this changed the game for the presidential portraits from here on out? How do you feel about what's going to happen in the future? Are we going to go back to standing by a desk, or is that just going to be lame and nobody wants to do that?
As far as the past, again, there are two official collections, the White House and the Portrait Gallery. And my understanding is that each institution works with the president and it advises them, offers them options for different artists. And so it's been significant artists, and it's certainly an honor. But there was something very different about these portraits. Again, because the image of Obama was so iconic from the moment he was a candidate. It was clear that these were going to be significant images. I'll share it with you that when I was in grad school thinking about the image of Obama, well before these portraits came out, I was waiting with bated breath to see who was going to paint these portraits. And when it was leaked who was doing them, I was like, I knew it. They knew the power of their image, because the fact that they chose Black artists, and not just Black artists, but artists who are committed to re-envisioning the Black figure in art history, they knew what they were doing. And the result, obviously, was beautiful. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all.